What's up, everybody? Rob Ferretti here, and behind me, obviously, the Maserati. Some of you guys pointed out quite astutely, mad, that the paint didn't match on this car, and you're right. And the reason it didn't was because I was going to wrap the car. I told them I was going to wrap the car, so they just painted it body color without blending it. Well, when I decided I wasn't going to daily this car anymore, they blended it, and now it's all nicey nice. And it's also sold, so I'm going to have this thing. I'm getting the money when I go out to SEMA next week, and then this one's going to be gone. And now that would beg the question, Rob, what do you drive every day? If you're not going to drive that cool Maserati, what do you drive? Well, the answer is that thing over there by the dumpsters, my $1,000 Mercedes. Those of you guys who have been on the channel for a while know, and you're like, well, Rob, you got all these cars. Why would you drive a $1,000 Mercedes? Well, partly, see, I can't even say I'm cheap. Although I did save some money on that sign by not buying the S. I'm just kidding. Somehow, given my luck and giving them the actual file with the S, yeah, you leave off the last S for savings. I don't know who's old enough to remember that, but yeah, we're going to fix that at some point in time. But here's my $1,000 Mercedes. I drive this every day. Occasionally throws a check engine light, never leaves me stranded. A lot of people didn't buy used cars, or didn't like to buy cars that were out of warranty because they were concerned about both maintenance costs and reliability. Nobody wants to get stranded. Well, cars, let's just say starting in 2005 and definitely after 2010, are a lot more reliable than you think. And that's one of those things that this car is perfectly good. And ignore the mess. It's usually a little bit messier actually. Car's got 161,000 miles. I paid $1,100 for it. And it's got heated seats. It's got all-wheel drive. It's got plenty of seats in the back. I've got all my packages from today. I've got my suitcase from my Ferrari. It's got a big trunk. And it gets the job done. And I don't need to impress anybody. I mean, a lot of people buy these cars that they can afford. They max out their budget because they want to be able to drive around in a new fancy Maserati or a new fancy Mercedes or BMW, and that's not really necessary. Because I just read something today that was talking about people taking the average, or like a lot of people are going for 7-year loans on their new cars, and that's absurd. Like 7-year loans on a car, you are so underwater so quickly on that car, you run into a problem. Let me go inside so I'm not just a talking shadow here. You run into such a problem when you take a 7-year loan, and I've seen this, and I've had people come to me and say, like, how do I fix this problem? Where you're driving a car that you've taken such a large loan on that if anything happens, and like say you get in an accident with the car, you bought it for 50, a couple of months later, 5 months later, somebody crashes into it, and the insurance company's like, I'll give you 41. Well, it's worth 41. It doesn't matter what options you have. It doesn't matter anything like that. It's worth 41, but guess what? You owe 48 on it. And now you're like, what do? The car's totaled. I owe $48,000. I got to get a new car. I can't even afford to pay the $7,000 difference. And all you're talking about is getting another new car. And I just say, probably not the smartest move. Especially a lot of people, they carry credit card debt, which they're paying 20+% interest on. And they go out and get the most expensive car that they can afford at the time. So if you can afford a $600 a month payment on a car, you spend $600 a month. But if you start doing the math, $600 a month, your cost of ownership on a lease like that or anything, or even a payment, and then you have all this depreciation, $600 a month is a lot. That's $7,000 a year. You go out and buy a cheap car, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you're limiting your exposure. Even if that car goes for 3 years, 5 years, it costs you virtually nothing. You're talking less than $100 a month. So why would you go out and spend the additional $500 a month, which is $6,000 a year for 3 years is $18,000. 5 years, you're looking at $30,000. Why would you spend that extra $30,000 when you can go so much further with $30,000 and still get from point A to point B? I get it if you lived on like in the Alps and you wanted to drive a fun car every day. But if you're not, you could probably get away with a cheap car, and a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people default towards new cars, towards leased cars, towards the highest car that they can afford to buy or rent. I'm sorry, buy or lease, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. There should be a lot more people driving used cars. Used cars were always a thing that most people steered away from. again, because of reliability or because of the cost of maintenance, but they're so reliable now, you're not going to get stuck on the side of the road. If you do, it's just as likely that you'll get stuck on the side of the road getting a flat tire in any car. But it's not something that should really concern people, and the benefits of saving all that money go a heck of a lot further than spending that extra money to be just another person pulling up in a BMW and Audi. When you're at the dealership, you get sucked into this like, that's a nice car, right? That's sexy, it looks good, it's new. But you realize when you get on the road that everybody else has one too. So you get lost in this like temporary moment of, I can afford that payment. And that's not the way to select a car. So a lot more of you guys should be out there driving cheap cars like I do. Obviously, I have other cars. But a lot of the cars, I mean, you've seen the way I buy cars. I buy cars that sort of retain their value fairly well. This one, and now, luckily, the only car payment I have right now is my wife's Subaru, which another reason to have a cheap car. I'm at an apartment right now, and when I park it, I don't have to park it away. I just park it in a spot. People ding the doors and everything. Doesn't really make a big deal. Somebody backed into my wife's car. It's a lease. I got to fix that. But this car, don't ask. But that car I've spent way too much money on. But all these cars that I buy retain their value. So if I'm putting the money into the cars, it's not really burnt. Now, I take that same approach with my everyday car. I don't need to be cool. I don't need to pull up anywhere in a Ferrari to feel special. I don't need to impress anybody by pulling up in a new BMW, a new Lexus, or even the Maserati. The Maserati would have been nice, but I get that same value out of the Mercedes without having to spend the extra money. So think about it. Think about why you're driving your car. Think about how much money you could save. Even that Mercedes, I think I spent maybe $600 on maintenance in the last 2 years, and it's never left me stranded on the side of the road. So after 3 or 4 years, that car, even if I throw it away or hand it out to somebody, is still going to be way ahead of the game. It'll cost me $100 a month to own it, and I like that. Rob Ferretti, thanks for watching. I hope I'm helping you think about your money a little bit differently, especially if you're on a limited budget or anything like that. You don't need to buy or lease a new car. Signing off. See you tomorrow.